This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
First things first, all-star voting results, have come in, and no surprise, KD and LeBron are spearheaded. But one thing I probably would like to highlight as it pertains to, LeBron James, I don't know if it's so much the popularity as much as it is just the crazy numbers that he's been putting up over the last couple of weeks, and has just elevated, the Los Angeles Lakers again to at least be in the conversation of being competitive. Whether or not they make it or do not make it, you have to feel good when you see a guy who's been doing it for 20 plus years, still doing it at an extremely high level. And I think it always raises that question. I mean, are we giving him the votes because of what he's given you in the past? Because I can make the argument that what he's giving you right now is indicative of what we say should be considered top qualifiers, as being in all NBA All-Stars in the vote getting aspect of things.
I mean, I don't want to get too political. I think some of what we are seeing here is his legacy, as a leading vote getter and one of the all-time greats in the NBA, but also the market and which he plays in as well too. So LA, they're going to stuff those ballots, and I think we're seeing that similarly to Golden State, where we're seeing some of the Golden State guys like Wiggins has missed a good portion of the year, and he's a little higher than I would have thought he would have been, in terms of some of the front court guys as well too. So, I think fifth right now in the West, and he hasn't really done much this year, unfortunately for him. So I think some of it is market, but when it comes to LeBron James, it's obviously his legacy more than anything else. So not to say that he's not deserving to be the leading vote getter in any capacity. I mean, and this game is supposed to be about the fans and who they like to see and want to see. So that goes alongside Kevin Durant as well. I think, without going too far from your original question, the biggest surprise to me, honestly, is Kyrie Irving leading the guards, and in the Eastern Conference, that is. So I'm really shocked by, how he's been able, in essence, to kind of turn that around. Or there are just a lot of Kai stands out there who maybe are like, what, we want to make sure our guy gets in there. So there's a lot of great play in the Eastern Conference in terms of guards right now. And Kyrie is among them, but I'm a little surprised at this stage that he's the leading vote getter, just by virtue of all the things that he's been through.
I see where you're coming from. I don't know if I'm necessarily surprised as much as I am, I guess, cautiously pleased, right? Here's the thing. Can you outright say, Shaw, when you look at the Eastern Conference, that as far as backcourt play goes, that there's really a laundry list of players that, essentially are going to would leapfrog? I mean, because to me, I feel like, all right, if it's Darius Garland, yeah, sure. Donovan Mitchell, no doubt. But honestly, who else, right? I mean, because I feel like the way that we're slotting all of our all-stars are going to wind up being wings. They're going to wind up being in the Eastern Conference, I'm speaking. Wings, sure. Power forwards. So it's interesting because I feel like there isn't enough solidified backcourt, representation. But you would expect this, because if the Brooklyn Nets were to be what they currently are right now, which is a top 4 seeded team, right? Minus all the drama. Let's forget all of that. You can make the argument that Kyrie Irving has deserved the nods that he's getting, sure, and has certainly, supplanted himself back to being an elite guard. I'm not going to put him over, what we're getting, from most of the other teams that do represent out of the Eastern Conference, because I need to see this translate into the playoffs. But for the purposes of the All-Star vote getting aspect of things, I don't know if I'm necessarily surprised. If I'm going to be surprised, I'm going to be surprised if he can maintain this and do this throughout the course of an NBA season. But what we're talking about is he good enough to be an all-star? And I feel like there's just not that many in the field of where he does and what he brings to the table in the 2-guard role that allows there to be that much competition for him to be fighting for that, starting position.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's arguing over, small potatoes here.
Right,
I don't really have an issue with it, right? I think if I were to go with what I think it probably should be, I'd probably go Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown right now. right?
Right.
But I think if you're striking while the iron is hot, Brooklyn has been the hottest team. So as the votes started to come out, they've really kind of caught fire, and it makes a lot of sense. And not to say that Kyrie wouldn't be an all-star. I'm again, I think just from the previous vitriol that we've seen from him via social, Twitter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to see the fans really responding in a positive way towards him to making the leading vote getter in the Eastern Conference and for his guards, I think it's a great feather in his cap ultimately, and saying, you know what, if you go out here and hoop, all is forgiven, and he's hooping, and they are balling right now. And as you alluded to, on the inches and the tails of both Milwaukee and Boston. So yeah, shouts to him, man, for turning this season around. And we'll see if they can, like you said, he can maintain the lead and be the actual starter in the Eastern Conference. Or in whatever the team, LeBron team, Kevin Durant, whatever it ends up being.
But I think you can make a respectable argument if Chris Middleton is 100% healthy. If DeMar DeRozan gives you what he gave you last year, I would be hard pressed to just elevate Kyrie Irving into that starting role. Like what I get, and I guess that's going back to my point about saying that the field is narrow only because I think some of those guys that have been filling in that slot, I think I don't want to say are down years. I'm just saying that like it's off because of the fact that
down years. Yeah, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Harden's been hurt, right? You're not going to vote Tyrese Halliburton into that situation as good as he's been. He's just not popular enough. LaMelo Ball has been hurt as well too. Trae Young is having a down year, and DeMar hasn't been as good as he was the previous year. Garland is not playing as good as he has because Donovan Mitchell is there. So
no, but I think though, I guess my thing is when I look at the numbers that Kyrie Irving is posting, do you think that those numbers are reticent of what the standard would be for the two guard position that we were getting over the last couple of years?
I mean, he's averaging like 26 a game, so sure. So yeah, again, it's I don't have an issue with it. Like, so my biggest thing is just I'm surprised.
That's what I'm saying. I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I guess in my mind, I'm thinking that there would essentially be other guys that I think would kind of push the conversation a little bit more about whether or not these Kyrie numbers, and I'm not saying that they're not all-star numbers. They're all-star numbers, but I just think that the field would be a lot more expansive, in other years than this one, and to your point, because of a couple of guys, on a down tick, having either bad year or just on just a down tick, or are just flat out have been injured, have not been 100% even coming into this season, and are still trying to get their legs underneath them. So it'd be interesting. What about from the Western Conference, y'all? Outside of us talking about LeBron James, anybody that kind of sticks out to you to just like from the jump to just, be like, oh, snap. Okay. I see you. There's no question. We're not questioning that the numbers don't put you in there, but the fact that there is popularity, there's momentum right in the idea that he's a possible all-star.
Well, not in a negative way. I think I said I already touched on the Andrew Wiggins thing because I don't see that aspect of it too. But it's nice to see people recognizing Lauri Markkanen. So while he's not going to sniff being a starter in the Western Conference, is not even going to come close. The fact that he's in the top 10, I think, in that market of Utah as well too. Kevon Looney somehow made it because of Golden State's just, a massive crowd all the time too. He's in the top 10 after first ballot results. But I see Lauri Markkanen getting in there. I think he's probably has the inside track for most improved player this year. Running away with it by most people's account at this stage. So as long as he can stay healthy and continue to do what he's doing, as I see fans are recognizing him, and also SGA, it's hard to deny him, but with Curry and Ja and Luka there, like he has no chance to start, but he should obviously be an all-star this year.
Maybe we'll have a conversation about whether or not starting should or shouldn't matter, because of the way that they've just been changing up the way that you go about. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I think now it seems to be more important whether or not you just get selected by whoever's team Durant or team James or team Antetokounmpo or whatever
it is. Yeah.
Right. But I will say this. I think what really sticks out at me when you mention Markkanen, because I think it's a great observation on your part. I think what really sticks out to me is the fact that he's been doing this and we're getting to the halfway point of the season. Right. Like, I don't think I've seen a actual whole season of Lauri Markkanen being this consistently good. And I don't want to jinx it, because I feel like if the Utah Jazz has any hope to maintain themselves in the playoff conversation, he's going to have to continue what he's doing. Now, whether or not that translates to saying he's going to be arguably the best person on that team, I think that's a lot left to be desired. But to be the most consistent and the best, one of the more consistently looked at go-to players for the Utah Jazz, I think would speak volumes, not just to the Utah Jazz, but to Lauri Markkanen and what we're talking about with regards to the direction and the ascension of his possible NBA career. Because for all we know, Shaw, he could easily be on the outs. You know, he could burn himself out this first half of the season, and second half of the season, got nothing left in the tank. And then we go back to the same conversations that we have about Lauri Markkanen. I'm hoping that this is just the beginning for him, because I want to see him finish this off. We haven't seen him do that when he was in Chicago. We haven't seen him really do that because of what was going on in Cleveland. I think he's got an opportunity to do it here in Utah. And I think Utah knows they're going to need him, especially in those stretch run where they're going to have to win some games. Guys are going to probably go on the mend, right? So if Lauri Markkanen can stay healthy and continue what he's doing right now, I think it will be an awesome story. And to your point, I don't have any doubts that he would then run away with being comeback, most improved player of the year by far.
Yeah, good call there too. So my final thought on it will just be, of those who don't belong, and I'm sure we'll see this hopefully corrected by second and third results. Austin Reeves in the top 10 in the Western Conference. Again, that is all market.
Smacks of desperation.
Yeah. So shouts to LA for rooting for their guys. I can appreciate that. Do your thing, but let's get it.
Damn, why don't they just put Trace Thompson in this? It's like he don't even play basketball. He plays for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Austin Reeves now is also injured. So anyway, we'll have some other guys, popping up here as well too. But I think for all in all, when it comes to the starters, they'll get most of it right, and then the coaches and such will get the other guys in there who are deserving. I don't think this will be a year we see 4 Warriors in there and all that stuff like that too. And so there'll be some first-time All-Stars that get a chance, and it'll be nice. It'll be really nice to see.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right. So before we get into our breakdown, I wanted to kind of run through some breakout performances that have taken place. And Shaw, I'll let you kind of power your way through your impressions. This really should have been an impress me segment. Okay. Yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 5, right? When I call out the impressive breakout performance, you let me know how impressed are you, right? All right. Luka Doncic dropped 60, grabbed 21, and dished out 10.
Yeah, that's a 5 out of 5 for me, man. And the fact that they won the game, he was able to bring them back after being down. Like all of those things kind of go into the performance, not just somebody out here just like scoring 1,000 points and whatever in a losing effort. Like they needed every one of those points for them to be able to eke out that win against the Knicks. So yeah, definitely a 5 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I have to admit, I think these are the type of performances that I think people have been clamoring for from Luka. And I'm not saying that this is like, oh, they expect this from him every night. What I'm saying is that I feel like we have to wait somewhere between the middle and the end of the season before something like this may occur, right? Like it's because he has to shoulder the load so much. And so I think if you are a Dallas Mavericks fan, you would rather see 35, 37, 10 and 12, each and every single night, literally, and then sprinkle in a 160, 21, 10. But I think the reason why this 60, 21, 10 really highlights more than anything is the fact that there is I can pull out, my dominant performance. I could pull that out of my bag and really give it to you. And that's what the Dallas Mavericks essentially needed for them to win that basketball game. Because it's how many times do we see other guys pull out these type of performances and teams still lose? Which really kind of highlights how important of a player Luka Doncic is, not just to the Dallas Mavericks, but to the NBA in itself. Because we talk about certain players who we really feel like, hey, does he help elevate or make, his teammates truly better? And I think we felt like we've used that to knock him, saying, well, the Mavericks only have him and nothing else. But with him, even marginally good players have a chance and can actually have a moment where they can come in and collectively as a team this is, I think, part of the reason why the Dallas Mavericks were among one of the finalists last year, right, in the Western Conference. I just don't think you just snuff at that when you see performance like this from Luka Doncic. All right, Donovan Mitchell, 71, 11, and 8.
5 out of 5. I'm not gonna pull punches here. Again, overtime game, needed every basket. They were down as well too to Chicago. And Donovan Mitchell making Knicks fans just go crazy because at the end of the day, they're like, why
That to
can't
me,
he
I
be
think
on our
it's
team?
5 out of 5, right?
Yeah, doing this for us.
It impresses me how Knicks fans still can find a way to be salty about anything that a player that they probably should have gotten and may not have. Listen, they do this to themselves. I think that they seriously torture themselves in the idea that if they were serious about getting the guy, they could have got the guy. Then if they don't see a performance like this, they shit on the guy. So.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, no, it's again, I feel like, it's scored like 145 points. So he scored like literally almost half of their points in that game. And again, it goes into overtime. I believe they were shorthanded. I think Garland missed that game as well. So just being able to hoop the way that he has been, and has been, I think, just elevated the Cavs into the upper echelon Eastern Conference conversation, has them again as a top 4 seed. And I think that's probably I think maybe they slipped to 5 at worst, and they're going to be a nightmare. So, and it's all thanks to him. While Evan Mobley has been stunted maybe just a little bit in terms of his overall development, like he hasn't been able to take the leap that we would expect because Donovan's there getting a lot of touches offensively. But he's been awesome. It really has. He's just been awesome. He's been, I think, arguably better than he has been even in Utah with even better teammates around him. I think that can complement him offensively.
Yeah, he's gonna be a problem. I had this conversation on the Culture podcast, when we recorded, and I said to myself, the NBA, I feel like, have been robbed of an opportunity over the last few years with Donovan Mitchell and with Jamal Murray. It's not the fault of Jamal Murray, and certainly not the fault of the NBA because Jamal Murray got injured. But damn, could you imagine if and this is part of where I felt like there was a problem with the Utah Jazz and the way that they were utilizing Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if they truly believed that this was Donovan Mitchell's team in the sense that, like, I just feel like these type of performances, I think he had so many opportunities to do this, right? And it just never materialized. It just never happened. I don't know if it's the flow of the offense under Quinn Snyder or whatever the case may be, but clearly there is that kind of opportunity to do that, where I thought that maybe it was because of veteran leadership that he helps to elevate some of these other guys, and he just finds his footing and maybe gives you 30, sprinkle in a couple of 40, 50-point performances as we get closer to the playoffs and kind of quash down a lot of that conversation saying he doesn't really show up big in crucial situations. But I think if you're a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, you should feel damn good that you got a player out there that can drop 70 for you, right? Like, you got your Kobe, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, and if that's the mentality that Donovan Mitchell truly has in a market like Cleveland, he can really kind of switch things around that I think a lot of people were very hesitant to find out and believe in, and what this team, the makeup of this team, was going to look like post LeBron James and post Kyrie Irving. And so performances like these, I think, impresses me more than ever because of the fact that Donovan Mitchell is coming in a very precarious situation with the way that the Cleveland Cavaliers are headed. But it could be for all of the good things that you want to see if they are the real deal. And I think getting those type of performances from Donovan Mitchell goes a long way to saying, I'm in my bag, I'm in my spot. Let's see how far I can take the Cleveland Cavaliers moving forward. Klay Thompson, Shaw. Klay dropped 54, 8, and 3. Where's your impress me scale on that?
Yeah, so this one maybe a little less. And no diss to Klay. I'll give Klay a 3 on this. Yeah, I think it's impressive. They also needed it. They won on a last second thing that actually he didn't have anything to do with on that. That was Kevon Looney, I believe. But at the end of the day, he got them to where they were even to be able to win that game. So we've seen Klay have really, really big performances, kind of lights out in that way. So for him to carry the Warriors alongside Jordan Poole, while Curry's been out, shouts to him as well too. But when you're comparing it to 60 and 21 and 71 and 11, 50, we see 50 balls more often than we see 60 balls, 70 balls. So that's why it's just a little less impressive. But again, great for him. especially coming back from all the injuries, all this talk, blah, blah, blah. He's really found a groove here in the latter part, or sorry, in the middle part here of the season now. And I think he's going to be, you know, the Clay of old in a lot of ways offensively.
Yeah, this stat line doesn't impress me as much as the collective stretch run, because I believe he scored like 114 points in the 3-game span, which was the most that he's ever scored in a 3-game span in his career. So I think that resonates with me a lot more than just the 54-point score, because I believe that, listen, it's always there for Klay Thompson. And I think people don't really appreciate when you got a guy who's okay with maybe scoring 25, 27, but is without a shadow of a doubt completely okay with having to drop 55 and 60 and being in an offense that allows you the ability to feel empowered that way to do so. Albeit, yes, Steph Curry was on the sideline. What I'm saying is even if Steph Curry was there, even if Andrew Wiggins was there, they believe Klay should be dropping 60 virtually whenever he wants to. So the fact that I think now, to your point, Shaw, he's doing it with the level of confidence that he's finding his shot, right? That he sees it go in the way that he used to see it prior to those injuries. I just feel like to get a stretch of games like that from Klay Thompson, when we've seen that in previous years with them during their stretch run, the core runs of their dynasty, I think resonates a lot more. And regardless of what the numbers say about this record with this Golden State Warriors team, if this version of Klay combined with the version of Steph Curry prior to his injuries in play, this is the type of Warriors team that you just do not want to be tussling with when it comes playoff time. This is when this team really becomes a dangerous basketball team, because then we're talking rhythm, we're talking basketball IQ, we're talking veteran savvy, and we're talking scoring dominance that stretches that the half court all the way to mid court. That you don't want. And that's the reason why I'm really impressed with, because it's not just one game. It was 3 games that he did that in a row. And it just felt like it was quote unquote Steffortless.
Love it.
Cassius Clay in his bag. All right. Giannis, 55 and 10 and 7, Shaw.
Yeah, I think for Giannis, I'm going to go maybe a little bit of a 4 here, because it is his career high. You know, obviously he goes about doing it in a much different way than anybody else who we've mentioned thus far. So I think, again, coming in and winning effort in an unexpectedly tough game against the Washington Wizards. So for Giannis, I think he's just same thing. He's kind of on the same run, right? He followed that up, I think, with a 34-point, 20 rebound, whatever, 12 assists, triple double right after that game as well too. So
yeah, he's averaging like 44, 45 points per game, like, over like a 6-game stretch or something ridiculous.
I mean,
just reinserted him right back into the MVP conversation.
Yeah. And and the Bucks had been sputtering a little bit, and Middleton has been out and continues to be dealing with, a multitude of injuries. So he's really carrying this team and trying to get them back on the right track. So for me, I'm really impressed with what Giannis was able to do and, set his career high. I think he has a 60 ball in him at some point as well, too, coming up.
Yeah, I'm impressed with it. I think what impresses me more is not the numbers, because I feel like these are numbers that he kind of almost does like in the regular. It's just that it doesn't look that way. It's the dominance. When Giannis is hitting free throws, when Giannis is giving you 10 of like 14 of 17, or I think there was one game that he played last season, or maybe it was earlier this season. I think he was like 16 of 18 or something like that. And then was like 14 of 16 from the free throw. When I see stuff like that, I'm like, damn, ain't nobody stopping this dude. Nobody is going to stop this version of Giannis. And I don't know whether or not he's actually put that together, so to speak. My fault. I didn't look at the numbers, the breakdown of what got him to 55, but it's kind of like, those moments of Shaq, you know what I'm saying? Where Shaq didn't really have to take a ton of shots, but he was on the free throw line a lot, because they knew that they were going to this is the only way we're going to probably stop him. And he's going and he's just even hitting free throws. It's just like, that's the night where you're not stopping him even if you want to. I think that this is the type of performance that just reinserts how he is the most dominant basketball player in the game of basketball. When he puts his mind to it, when he's in his rhythm, I don't think there's anybody that can match up with him. There's anybody that can stop him. The only person that I think literally that can stop him is himself. And so these, I think, are those type of performances. While I'm not going to give it a 5, I'm to your point, I'm somewhere like a 3.5, 4 to it, because the numbers to me seem like they're prototypical Giannis, but they're reminiscent of the fact that there's that dominant element that we have to respect. And it's why the Bucks will continue to be, a threat in the Eastern Conference, will always be in the conversation in the Eastern Conference. And him, as long as he's healthy and doing this, ain't nobody stopping this. Not one bit. Final one, Shaw. Nikola Jokic. 40, 27, and 10. You're not impressed with that at all, I know.
Oh, well, when you put him in the conversation of Wilt Chamberlain and Elgin Baylor, yeah, you have my attention. And Jokic just continues to be as humble and unassuming as any superstar out there. And yes, superstar. He's a 2-time MVP, so I think we need to get used to understanding where he's at. Even the Denver Nuggets are sitting at the top of the Western Conference as we record here today. I'm super impressed by that 27 rebound effort. Obviously, 40 is kind of ho-hum when you're comparing it to the rest of the numbers here that we're talking about offensively, but the 27 boards and then still managing a triple-double. Again, only Wilt and Elgin have been able to do those types of things, 40 at 25, and is still managing a triple-double in that process, man. So Jokic is way, way up there for me. Another person there's no way he can win a third MVP. He's like, hold my beer. Watch this. And he's really starting to come on, even with Jamal Murray back, even with Michael Porter Jr. back. And they've been in our lineup, yes, indeed, but he continues to be that steady force, man. And the Nuggets just are rolling and giving all the problems in the Western Conference that we thought they would. And it's all thanks to Giannis. I mean, sorry, to Jokic. My apologies.
Yeah, where Jokic goes, the Nuggets go, right? That performance, I think, speaks more like the performance that we're just talking about with Giannis. I think it speaks more to Jokic than I think it does, with how we look at the numbers and what it represents and what it's indicative of. Jokic is he's a monster. Listen, if there wasn't a Giannis, I think you can almost make the argument that Nikola Jokic could be the next best dominant big in the game, which is saying something, because I think we've been clamoring to say that about Joel Embiid, right? But with Jokic, listen, you just don't seem to find a flaw in that game when he is on at all. And you're seeing him improve on the defensive side of the basketball as well, too. Like the one thing that we typically kind of hang our hat on Joel Embiid, that if he is a better defensive player, even not that he isn't already, but if he's in a better defensive player, he'd be winning MVPs. But when you look at the total package of what Jokic gives you offensively, I'm hard pressed to even say, oh yeah, Joel Embiid is the next is the best best big that's out there. Nah, man. I mean, you got it. That's Jokic, and playing the true 5. That is Jokic, because he just does shit that's just phenomenal. I just can't speak enough. And you're not going to get it every single night. Not by the way that Malone plays this. With their style of offense in that team, but it's certainly in there. And I think this team is unabashed at making sure that he gets those kind of numbers. You know what I'm saying? So Jokic is just that dude right now, man. And again, to your point, if he does this and and even if it's a step below this, the Nuggets, I still think, are going to be a formidable team come this year. And again, it's another inclination about how we're going to have to respect the Denver Nuggets. I think we haven't been able to see that translate yet with the dominance of Jokic, and it all come together because of all of the injuries and, something's always just missing with this team. It's kind of funny because we're saying we can be more confident about what the Nuggets are capable of doing than we had for the last 4 years when the Utah Jazz were among the best team in the Western Conference. So what's that saying?
Yeah, well, we've been waiting patiently for the Nuggets to get healthy and to be at this level, alongside what Jokic has been able to do at that MVP level as well, too. So kudos to Malone. Thankfully, they're healthy. They got a roster that fits. KCP doing, again, just being the glue to Murray and Porter Jr. Aaron Gordon's having a really, really solid year, kind of under the radar, as well, too. I think they just have things rocking and rolling in Denver, man. And it's going to be the problem that we thought it was going to be.
Totally, man. Totally. All right, Shaw. Well, I guess you've been very impressed.
Yeah.
I mean, if we average it all out, you were quite impressed by these performances. And I think our listeners were quite impressed as well too. But we don't want to hear from you, man. Let us know who impressed you over the last week. You know what I'm saying? Coming into this new year, that we should be you know what I'm saying, unabashedly, giving kudos and praises to. Get at us at NBA Baseline. Coming up, Shaw and I are going to start talking about some possible trade rumors that we would want to see. It's, Christmas is gone, but that doesn't mean that we don't still, kind of wish to see maybe some guy in a different situation, circumstance, maybe help a team out here and there. We'll talk about that, man. Possible trade rumors that we're clamoring for here on the baseline. Time to break it down to the bone gristle. We are back. Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, Baseline NBA Podcast, and it's time now for the breakdown. And our topic for the breakdown: trade rumors, man. Who we'd like to see on the move. All right, Shaw, I know you got a nice little list of players here, so I'll rattle a couple of names off to you, and you give me, your impressions about why you would like to see these guys either moved or the likelihood of wanting to see them move, right? So I think the first person that kind of jumps out here and is interesting because you've mentioned this a few times already, simply because for the life of you, you never quite understood why the Detroit Pistons went and got Bojan Bogdanovic. But now that we've seen that the Detroit Pistons are not going to be a contending basketball team, that they're going to be going through what they're going through, you're like, all right, man, it's time to move the Bog.
It's not me. I'm just following the news, bro. And so, I think people look and say, hey, man, what you doing over there with this Bogdanovic cat? Because he is enticing. He is a guy who can score. He can defend at a decent level as well, too. Doesn't cause a problem in the locker room and can really be the missing piece, to a potential roster. Detroit got him on the cheap for whatever reason. Danny Ainge in Utah decided like, hey, we're not going to hold him for ransom. And now Detroit has the opportunity to, potentially extract a first round pick from somebody because he really can be the missing piece to a championship level team if they're willing to pay for it, so to speak.
Shaw, can I ask you a quick question about Bogdanovic? Do you still think that he's a starter in the NBA? Like if you're someone who's going to trade for Bogdanovic, right? Are you trading him because you're inserting him into, that starting role, and he is essentially of that missing piece, which I think then kind of narrows down the field of possible trade, partners? Or are you okay with trading to bring him on? Maybe to say like the Boston Celtics, for example. I'm just throwing it out there, where that you already have your solid five, but you are not opposed to the idea of getting some extra shooting if he's coming off the bench, or facilitating an even more, solid bench when you have Malcolm Brogdon coming off as well too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two teams that are probably the hottest on his heels are Milwaukee and Cleveland. And those are two teams actually in the same division as him currently. And they could very easily insert him one way or another. You can have Middleton play the 2 or 3, have him play that 3 or 4, whatever you wanted to do. And then the same thing in Cleveland, because right now they don't have a starting small forward that they're subtle with. And Karis LeVert can kind of come off the bench in whatever capacity. So those are the two biggest teams. I think if Boston were to somehow get into that mix, you could then move Brown to the 2, because right now Horford is still starting and Robert Williams is coming off the bench. You would assume maybe that changes at some point. So then maybe that changes that equation a little bit. But he's just somebody that contending teams are looking for. So I can't imagine Detroit is going to off-ship him to like a Charlotte or something like that right now, where it would just be kind of more of the same. It's going to be a contender who's going to be willing to pay top dollar. And again, we'll see if they actually even want to do it. Because remember, they also already extended him this year. They've already given him a 2-year extension, I think within the first, 10 games of the season. So
that wasn't a head scratcher at all.
But they're not trying to get rid of him per se, but they also know what his value is worth. So, hey, they can keep him and, have him continue to help groom some of the young guys and continue to be professional. That's what they ultimately want to do, even for a year or two from now. And they can still flip him next year if that's what they wanted. But teams rightfully are calling and knocking because, hey, the door is open for a championship for many teams this year. So what would it take to get Bogdanovic away from the Pistons, who obviously are not going anywhere this year?
I don't know. I don't know, Shaw. He's definitely high on the list, right? Like he is definitely among one of the go-getters, you would say, right?
Yeah, for sure. For
Absolutely.
sure.
All right. Here's a name that we haven't thrown out at all because he's been kind of chilling at home. Jae Crowder. What are we doing with Jae Crowder, bro? Or maybe Jae Crowder should be asked is like, what do you think should happen to me?
Yeah, Phoenix is in this weird conundrum, and different reports have come out as well too. I think even with um the bridge in ownership right now. So would Sarver actually have to approve some sort of a deal if Crowder were to be ultimately moved while they're changing over the team ownership, if you will? He is still the eye of a lot of people's desire, so to speak. A reunion in Miami, I don't think is out of the question. Boston would kick the tires, but like he wants a contract similar to PJ Tucker. So I think they could get their contract wise. Now, if he becomes bought out or waived or something like that too, then, the market just, becomes exponential. I wouldn't be surprised, say the Lakers get into this, the Clippers getting into this, if there's a
I was just
possibility.
gonna say I like the idea of possibly the Lakers doing this because listen, let's just keep it 100, man. Anthony Davis is not going to be healthy for the rest of this NBA season. Okay, he's probably never going to be healthy for the rest of his NBA career. The only way that the Los Angeles Lakers see a pathway to getting into the playoffs, they got to play better defense, and they need more bodies to play better defense. And I'm not saying, because I don't think the issue is them really offensively, except for yes, they got to shoot the basketball better. But damn it, to do that, you got to rebound the basketball. You got to be able to give yourself more opportunities. They don't do that. They don't have enough horses and live bodies to go out there and execute those things to give themselves those chances. I can see Crowder, and I'm not saying I'm all in. I'm just saying I can't see how Pelinka does not think about possibly bringing a guy like Crowder on there, because you need some beef up in that front court, and you're going to need somebody out there that's going to be able to log in some heavy minutes, because you're not going to get those minutes from Anthony Davis, especially if you're trying to keep him, his career extended. It's just not going to happen. He's just not the kind of guy that you're going to be able to afford having him. And then there's like this ginormous gap of talent between him and anyone else that's going to have to fill in those minutes that he can't give you because he can't stay healthy.
Well, let me give you two teams. One of them you probably won't like. One you might be like, I think a reunion in Dallas also would be to Dallas's liking,
I'm
and
not
could
opposed
be
to that.
yeah, I think would be potentially a really good fit. And then sneakily, ironically, a team that has been really good offensively and has been turning heads is the Sacramento Kings.
I knew
Now,
you were going to go there. There was no way we were going to have this kind of conversation, and the Kangs ain't being brought up.
and it doesn't make it a great fit, because then Keegan Murray is gonna be like, well, what the F, bro? like what you doing? You know what I mean? Like, you gonna let me rock out here or not? But I think as the Kings try to make the playoffs for the first time in forever, you bring in somebody like that at a veteran presence. It doesn't necessarily have to start if you're willing to pay him to kind of be a locker room presence. But I think right now, what he's doing, ostracizing Phoenix, which was a championship level team, I think that's also lowering his trade value. So if you are the general manager, you're like, all right, well, do we want to kind of bring this disgruntled mess into our locker room, and he's going to mess up our chemistry? But I think those are two teams who I think are probably going to be more. Well, Dallas is always active, but I think Sacramento is going to be more active than we are usually expecting them to be, because they see that the time is now and the iron is hot for them to make a move here in the Western Conference.
It's interesting that you say that, like, because Crowder is ostracizing the Phoenix Suns, that like it's lowering his trade value. I wonder. I'm just, me, Shaw. I try to either think out of the box, or damn it, I'm just crazy and ain't nobody gonna think the way that I think. But what if we said maybe he's actually exposing something about the Phoenix Suns that I think we've all been kind of wondering, with that talent that they've had? Are they just paper tiger? Are they a paper tiger team? Right? Like, as talented as they are, if they don't have, quote unquote, the cojones, right, to run with the big dogs, if they don't have, like, you know what I'm saying, the gumption, you know what I'm saying, to dig it out and really and ball against the teams that they need to be balling against, then we're gonna always look back and say, yeah, if it wasn't for the pandemic, this team probably would not be where they are right now, right? And I don't want to use that as a reason to knock Monty Williams. I think he's an excellent coach. I think he's the right person. I think him and James Jones are a great combination and have helped elevate the Phoenix Suns, who are a putrid basketball team prior to these guys coming on board. What I'm saying is that I think the problem is more with the players. And if a guy like Jae Crowder, while he is sitting on the sidelines, but he could also be opening up the conversation about how should we really be looking at these guys? Are they really all that? Or from someone who's been there and looking in these guys and looking in their hearts, he's like, they ain't about that. You know, don't get it twisted. He's like, there's a reason why I don't want to rock with these dudes. And I'm just saying that, like, maybe that could be another angle that could be taken from this because of the way that, you know, Jae Crowder is looking at this situation and how Jae Crowder is being treated.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think all bets are on the table right now, and Phoenix, I don't think has been maybe not as great as well, definitely not on the court product. And now Devin Booker's out for however long he's going to be out for as well too. But it's just been a little bit of weird vibes this season. And I think in the beginning of the year, we wondered if their window had actually closed. And so, yeah, maybe there's some other stuff going around this organization that we're just not privy to. As good as great as an individual as Monty Williams seems to be, the teammates don't seem to like DeAndre. And I don't know if you saw that Booker situation with Ayton the other day when he missed free throw. Like, it's just weird vibes, man. And, maybe Crowder's, like you said, is kind of like trying to get ahead of some of it.
We're going to probably have to have a conversation about the Phoenix Suns, Shaw, probably within the next week or so, because there's so many things that I really think are kind of pointing in that direction that we got to be like, all right, forget the Sarver. Like the Phoenix Suns are a case study in how you have to appreciate that window of championship when it's there. Because I think you can make the argument that we're right back where we are again with any Chris Paul led basketball team. Because even now, right, Shaw, we're not talking about the execution and the product on the court that Chris Paul has signed on for this Phoenix Suns team to be on the kind of runs that we're talking about. Him going and getting his degree, at an HBCU. He's doing other things. Devin Booker doing other things. I just feel like everything is just so off. And it's weird because we were talking about how this was the opportunity for Chris Paul to maybe finally get that chip, right? Yeah. And it's so quick how quickly within a 2-3 year time frame we are already on the outs about that aspect of it, right? We're even saying to ourselves, like, even if they get there, we don't have any confidence they're going to be one of the teams that are going to be competing in the Western Conference Finals. And that's just really strange considering it. But we've done this before. We did this when he was in Houston. We did this when he was with the LA Clippers. And I'm not trying to say that it's all his fault. But what I am saying is that it just seems like whenever it comes down to it, this window that we keep thinking that he has is not really that big of a window at all.
I'm not disputing it, and I'm not rooting against him in any capacity. Hopefully, Phoenix turns it around. But again, a conversation for another day.
Yeah, they're gonna have to. All right, Zach LaVine. His name is being thrown around a lot, and I feel like, I think there's been rumors about maybe the Knicks looking at him, and I'm like, why? Why? I'm like, why would you want Zach LaVine? It's like, okay, you're telling me that you don't want RJ Barrett, right? To me, it's like, if you bring in Zach LaVine, you can't have RJ Barrett. So either you're not on RJ Barrett or you're on RJ Barrett. And if you're on RJ Barrett, Zach LaVine is not your answer. You need to go, you know what I'm saying? But it's interesting how in New York, the conversation is, oh, we could use a Zach LaVine on our squad. No, you can't. No.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're looking at it from the offensive standpoint, where, if the Knicks, like, they're still not like this juggernaut offensive team. And the fit in Chicago is just, again, they'll get a couple wins, but if you watch them play, and I have been, they really are on this your turn, my turn situation with DeRozan. Like, it's bad. And I know we've kind of been up and down about them because when they start to win, you're like, all right, well, maybe they're going to turn it around. But even when they win, it's just like, Like I saw the other night, DeMar had it, Zach, calling, he's just like, he not giving it to me. And then he just started pouting. And because he knew DeMar, and DeMar took it, and DeMar made it. But at the end of the day, there wasn't that same, that level, like that kinship that you'd want caliber, those type of calibers of players to have. So in any event, New York is sniffing around. The Heat are going to sniff around as well too, because they realize they're maybe not where they're at. They would just unfortunately for Jimmy Butler, slide him to the 4, and then maybe put Hero at the point or whatever the case may be. And they just kind of run with those types of players if they were to make something happen. And I think the Lakers are obviously interested as well too, if they were able to pry him away, but it would cost them draft picks and some sort of draft capital, that they're probably opposed to at this current time. So LaVine is a name to watch, but the same thing, Chicago's not going to give him away. They still feel like they have talent on this roster. They're hoping Lonzo Ball can return to maybe help steady and right the ship and get the chemistry together between those two. Because right now, a lot of them, it is DeMar gets a rebound, then he brings it up, or Zach gets a rebound and he brings it up. Vucevic is kind of like Switzerland, like they seem to both like him, but other than that, you know what I mean, they're just kind of like not passing to each other and passing to every other teammate. It's really weird. So I don't know if LaVine will be in Chicago. If he does make it this year, I don't know if he'll be here going into next season, especially if they don't.
I just thought it was a mistake that the Bulls, re-upped him. I thought he was done. I really felt like, I don't know what it was that prompted the idea that they should, go after him. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, losing a guy like Zach LaVine, who I guess is a favorite in Chicago, would have hurt, their opportunities for what they want to do moving forward with signing possible other free agents. But I just wasn't seeing where this next go around of having LaVine and DeRozan and even Ball was going to extend itself to the level of competitors. And I think maybe part of it was because of the way that I saw how the Boston Celtics elevated themselves. How I've seen the Milwaukee Bucks with the way that they have, their three, their trifecta and how they're paired up. They're dynamically different. I am not seeing the dynamic difference between Ball, LaVine, and DeRozan, right? Like, all three of them are great mid-range guys. And I'm not saying that Ball shoots the basketball excellent or nothing like that. What I'm saying is that none of these guys shoot the 3 ball exceptionally well. So all of the brunt of their points really comes down to what they're doing in the paint. And they're all dynamic guys. But in that confined space, nothing good comes from it because there's nobody who's going to space that ball and get it out so that they can shoot a legit 3. Even when Ball was there, what you could hang the hat on is that they were dynamic and athletic and they could rebound the basketball and they give themselves great opportunities. But I always felt like Zach LaVine was the odd man out. When he started getting injured, I think he lost a lot of that flair and favor that he had garnered being in Chicago when he was the only dude. And then you make these moves and you bring DeRozan in and you trade and you get Ball over here and you got Vucevic. And I think everybody was trying to buy into this idea that these guys can figure out a way to really elevate themselves in the Eastern Conference conversation with the way the other teams were structured. Now that teams are supplanted, everybody knows who pretty much is running things in the East, and it'll probably be that way for the next couple of years. You look at this team, and it's like the Chicago Bulls are like 8 men out. You know what I'm saying? They're just the oddball end of the basketball team in the way that we look at the Eastern Conference. And I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be long before we're having conversations about like Zach LaVine going. I just don't know where it is that he can go in the Eastern. I can probably see maybe Toronto. You know what I'm saying? Like I could probably see him playing next to Siakam. We're talking about Fred like Van Fleet. He's in an interesting space with his contract coming into the year. This could be an opportunity for him. We don't know what's going to happen with OG Anunoby. To me, I might seeing him pair up maybe with Siakam might be a nice little blend. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That Nurse might be able to work with. But man, it's interesting how Zach LaVine, man, has been out of favor, so to speak, amongst the people because he doesn't stay healthy. And now what he's doing, I don't think is helping himself one bit to stay in Chicago.
Well, no, I'll just close it with this. I mean, he's a pretty decent 3-point shooter. Maybe not having his great season right now.
He's better than DeRozan and Ball. I'm not saying that he sucks. I'm just saying that like what he gives you inside is more elevating than what he does outside shooting the basketball. I think shooting the basketball accentuates.
I think more than anything else, nobody expected the DeRozan trade to be what it's been, where DeRozan was kind of coming here and become the alpha. Like DeRozan, I think by most people's account, especially older, but on the second side of his career, so to speak. But he's had this like magical resurgence and he attributes a lot of that obviously to the reps he got in San Antonio playing point guard and doing some other things is there. But I don't think even LaVine was like, yo, DeRozan's cool. All right, nah, nice piece, whatever. And he'll be my Robin. And DeRozan's like, nah, bro, I'm Batman in this piece. And LaVine, like you said, has battled some injuries at the latter part of last year and just wasn't really healthy to begin this year. And I think now it's frayed the relationship in a way that I don't know if it's reparable.
Yeah, it's probably not. It's probably not. It's just too competitive in the East to afford that. And if you're not going to be able to continue to extend this too much longer, because there's going to be a point where DeMar DeRozan is going to want to be somewhere where he feels like he has a chance to be competing, in an Eastern or Western Conference Finals. He's got to be on a team that he knows that whatever he's contributing is positioning them to be competing for some chips, because he's getting around that time of his career, man. It simply is. And there's no getting around it. It's not about him being old. I'm just saying it's how he plays his game. Can it translate to other teams who are in a different space with the way that they are playing the game, with what they're looking for to fill their rosters? He's going to probably be narrowing down that search. And so it's either going to be Chicago, because Chicago believes in that with DeRozan, or he himself is going to be like, all right, so just move me out. If you're going to still stick with LaVine and Ball, like, this is your future. This can't be me with this kind of future, All right, Shaw, final one that we want to get into, Myles Turner. Oh, how we would love to see Myles Turner probably play for someone else. No? Or should he stay in Indiana?
Well, he's like, listen, shit or get off the pod at this point. They moved Sabonis last year, obviously.
It's funny how he's the one that's supposed to be moving, and they move everyone but him.
Nah, and he's sitting here like, well, I'm playing good basketball. I'm amongst league leaders in blocks again. Halliburton fits my skill set a little bit more. Extend me, and let's say, hey, we're going to be whatever, an unhappy union, or just get me the hell out of here. And I think that's what the Pacers are at with it. So there's got plenty of overtures. There's plenty of teams that will look and feel like his contract is, is cap friendly and can make something work. And his name has been just brought up in rumors all like for years in a row. So at this point, it is a much, hey, I'll believe it when I see it type of thing. I think he probably ends up staying, but again, we'd be doing we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we didn't mention the fact that, hey, he and the Pacers are still talking about extension, and this is the kind of the news that are swirling around. If it doesn't get done, that he will almost be like asking and pushing for the trade. Finally, saying, listen, obviously you don't value me here, so let's move me on.
So if they were to move him on, where would you see him go? I would have loved to have seen him at some point a few years ago playing for the Boston Celtics when we weren't sure about what was going on with Time Lord. But now I think that ship is clearly sailed. And so I'm really interested in seeing what he brings to the table, who would really utilize, his ability as a big. Because, to your point, Shaw, like, it's interesting in his space. A guy like Halliburton thrives having a guy like Myles Turner on his squad. But where would Myles Turner go where like that kind of style of play is going to help translate being, in the conversations of we're moving on up. This was a positive move on our part in bringing a guy like Myles Turner in onto our squad. So
I'll give you two teams, that I think, and if they want to go that route, well, I can give you three teams. I don't think I'm going to start with the least likely, Utah. If they were actually trying to, get into a situation where they really are trying to win, and I'm still not convinced that that's what was the real plan here, but I think that's a situation where he could potentially help. I would also think in Miami, in allowing Bam to play a more natural power forward situation, although Bam is not really a stretch for, Myles Turner can be the stretch to that situation and still give them rim protection and give them some stuff that they can potentially utilize. And then, as always, again, the Lakers are still sniffing around, and that will allow AD to kind of go back to the 4 position that he'd prefer to play as well too, and then give them again that rim protection. A sneaky team, I don't think they'll do it in any capacity. I just don't feel like they're desperate in any way in that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Golden State at least sniffed around that situation. Even knowing what they may be trying to plan to do with Draymond, in years to come. So do they get ahead of that in some capacity and get Turner in there now? And then, they still have Loon as well too. So, but those are 4 teams. But I think, the Lakers are probably the one that is probably the most likely that are going to look into that situation. But I think Miami should be definitely sniffing around as well too.
Man, it's funny you mentioned the Lakers, because in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, see, this is what happens. You want to move back. You want to move Anthony Davis back to the 4. but his dominance is when he plays the 5.
Yeah.
And I guess, and again, another comment. I'm glad we're coming up with all of these great possible conversations in this one show, Shaw. But I'm really getting tired of this idea that, like, oh, well, he move him to the 5 because then we'll preserve his health. He ain't getting injured because he's playing the 5. He's getting injured because he can't stay healthy. That's it. I mean, you make the argument that, like, because he plays the 4, that's exactly the reason why he gets injured. I don't think he gets injured because of the physicality. You know what I'm saying? Playing low, playing down low, or nothing like that. He gets injured because he tries to do athletic things that his body at times can't handle. And so, if you're playing the 5, you're playing the 4. That's just what happens with Anthony Davis.
Well, let me move the conversation, back to Myles though. So let me invoke your spirit here and do a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
What would you think about a Myles Turner to OKC situation? And then they get Chet back next year and they just ball out, like Holmgren and Turner on the front line with Giddey, SGA, Lou Dort. I don't know, man.
That would be Presti feeling himself like he did 5 years ago. You know what I'm saying? That would literally, like when he made not 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when he got Chris Paul. He's rolling the dice. He's like, look, I'm gonna put you guys up because I think this will work. And they go out, and to your point, they ball out. And then we're gonna be right back in this situation. Are you teasing the OKC fan base? Right? Like, because that could be a very successful front court combination, Shaw. I like where your mind is going. I didn't realize I had such an influence in you in 2022 to see this type of maniacalness in you in 2023. I can appreciate that.
I just, again, I'm kind of on the OKC keep it together, let's ride out and see train right now. So I think we're at the point where they should start adding pieces and not taking away from them.
But that's all on Presti. So to your point, I think the question now is like, is he really feeling SGA? Is SGA feeling OKC or ownership and wants to ride with whatever plan they have coming up? And I think to your point, if there is that, relationship there that they want to do this, I think a good start would be making a play for a guy like Myles Turner, which I think a lot of people are going to be kind of like thumbing their nose to that a little bit, but it could certainly work to the advantage of OKC. And to your point, y'all, let's think about it like this. When Holmgren comes back, is he going to have anybody he's going to really learn how to play that front court, around? Probably not. And having a guy like Myles Turner, who came in really on defensive principle. Well, no, he came in more offensively than he did defensively, and then improved himself defensively because he became one of the premier shot blockers before, again, he got injured. Playing next to a guy like Holmgren, I think he can kind of help teach him how to play in the NBA and learn how to play with the body that he has and build out and everything like that. I would not be far from that thought process at all.
Well, that's one I'd like to see. I think OKC is too greedy in terms of draft capital, in essence, to like want to do it in advance. So they would probably roll the dice and see if they can maybe do it in the offseason after they've gotten whatever pick that they've gotten, so to speak, to see where that lands. So I wouldn't see them doing it at the trade deadline because, like, they're still, I don't say they're tanking, but they've been even still unexpectedly good because he's having his best season. So they're like, 4 or 5 games under 500 and not 10, 12 games under 500 like many people thought they might have been.
Listen, if they're going to drop 150 points, how many times have they done this now? I think they've done this like 6 times already this year, the OKC Thunder. And then you get a guy like Myles Turner who likes to shoot the 3. I think he'd love playing in OKC. I think he'd love it. Former Texas Longhorn, not far from Texas. I mean, I'm sure he's about that Red River shootout, bro.
Hey, bro, and can grow with the young team and things of that nature. Anyway, Myles Turner, if you're listening, give it some thought. Talk to your agent. You know what I mean? Sam Presti.
And feel free to come talk to us again.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Let us know. Let us know. We're here for consults. We're here for consults.
Exactly. Awesome show this week, Shaw. Good stuff all around. And before we send off, man, congratulations. I'm saying happy anniversary to you. I know that as we're recording this, doing it a little bit early, man, is because you got plans, man. You got traveled through with the wifey, man, and celebrate the union.
You know what it is, bro. I mean, those COVID years, it's really, really kind of just, they were wiped out. We didn't get a chance to really celebrate in the way that we should, So if you're out there, with your loved one, your partner, whoever that is, make sure you celebrate them. Go on date nights, do the whole nine. We're gonna turn this to baseline into a relationship show, but definitely, I'm gonna make sure my
Listen,
queen is, doing
we're
what
all
needs to
about the
happen.
versatility, bro. We're all about the
Oh, you
versatility.
know what it is. Yeah, I mean, hey, man, we're two dope brothers with a lot of life to live, and a lot of life that has been lived as well too. But yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to celebrating the anniversary with wifey, and and seeing a smile on her face.
Yeah, man. Hey, shout out to Outkast, two dope boys in a Cadillac.
You
There
know
you
what
go.
it is, boy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said, you know that. Oh, man, big boy. Once again, we'd like to thank you and yours for hopping on board with us this week and give us your thoughts about some of our conversations, possible destinations that we laid out for Bogdanovic, Crowder, LaVine, and Turner, man. Get at us at NBA Baseline. For the Baseline, Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. You know we do. Catch up with you